We have Habitat for Humanity with us today.
Good evening.
I haven't even gotten a moment to meet you. Are we expecting Zach as well?
Zach will be here momentarily, but
Okay.
I'll stand in for him for a moment. Good
Great.
evening, everybody. My name is Michael Palmer. I'm a Warren resident, and I've been swinging hammers with Habitat for about 10 years, both on Cape Cod and here in the Mount River Valley and Barrie and a couple other places. I was asked to moderate this evening, so I'll try to manage the Q&A a little bit, but I don't work for Habitat other than, just as a volunteer. But I thought I'd just introduce the topic tonight. There's a lot of discussion about the Warren Town Garage new site and the old site. As you know, it's moving from place A to place B. The Planning Commission, Dan Raddock and the rest of the Planning Commission did a lot of work to prepare and figure out what suggestions they'd have for the Selectboard in terms of what to do with that site. One of the ideas was that Habitat for Humanity could help us out. So I happened to introduce the Habitat team to the Planning Commission, and that's why we're all here tonight. So we have a full discussion for an hour. Feel free to ask questions as you go. I'll try to keep track of them, or we'll answer them as we go. And without further ado, why don't I ask Josh Schwartz to come up and begin the conversation.
Thanks, Josh.
Yes. So there is a slides.
Yes.
Awesome.
You want those now?
Yes. Those would be perfect. Thank you. Hi everybody. I'm Josh Schwartz with the Mount River Valley Planning District. It's great to see everyone, and it's a pleasure to be here. I was asked to share just a couple of minutes of sort of context in regards to some housing work that's been going on in the Mount River Valley. The Mount River Valley Planning District has played a key role in over the last 10 or so years. Might be the next slide. Oh, that's the overview.
That's the overview. Just
One more. Excellent. So there's been a handful, I think, providing a little Mount River Valley broader context and context setting for this discussion. I want to highlight a handful of different efforts that have taken place in the last 10 or so years. One, the 2017 the Mount River Valley Housing Study. This was a project led by the Mount River Valley Planning District. Was looking at key demographics and economic trends and characterizing the housing issue from different perspectives, identifying approaches and strategies to increase access to housing, and include a bunch of case studies. It was framing the housing situation in the Mount River Valley in a broad way. And there's some analysis in there, but a lot of it is looking at the sort of opportunities to unlock housing potential at a scale that makes sense for the Mount River Valley. There's both an overview document, which is this one, which is a picture right there on the page, as well as a more in-depth version of that document. After that work and engaging with the community, it was seeing that there was a need to dig a little bit deeper into the data to create more understanding of housing need and market demand. So we hired Doug Kennedy Advisors, an economist, to undertake both a quantitative and qualitative analysis of housing and housing opportunities. So looking at demographics, other regional data, that included, the qualitative side included a variety of local perspectives, including surveys of employers, and resulted with a variety of information, including recommendations for new development projects that meet the market demand that was identified through the study. And then third, and this is an annual project, the Mount River Valley Data Report. The Mount River Valley Planning District puts together a report of Mount River Valley demographics and other related information, and included are things like number and sales price of homes, both primary and secondary, primary and vacation homes, primary residence loss versus gain, housing permits, so on and so forth. The 2025 version of the data report is available. All these things are available on the Planning District's website. But I think understanding the data and the work that's happened in our communities and the analysis that's happened at a valley-wide perspective, I think is important. As we start asking questions about what makes sense here and why. Next page. I just pulled out, I only have 4 slides, limited amount of time, but I wanted to pull out a handful of key demographics that are highlighted through this work. One, just talking about, we have an aging population in the Matterhorn Valley as a whole, as a state, and as a nation. The US median age is currently 38, or in the 2020 descending census numbers, 38 years old, which increased by 21% between 1990 and 2020. But Vermont's median age increased by 32% during that period of time, and Warren's median age increased by 54%. So the median age in 2020 for Warren was 49 years old in comparison to the US median age of 38. There's also a high proportion of seasonal housing, seasonal homes, resulting in competition and increased demand, especially in light of slow housing development. If we take Waitsford, Warren, and Faison, of all the housing stock, 40% are identified as seasonal. In Warren specifically, it's 54% of Warren's total housing stock. Jobs by industry, the number of jobs, the highest, this is all in the data report, the sectors that have the highest proportion of jobs in the Matterhorn Valley are leisure and hospitality and retail trade, or retail. And the average annual wage by industry, 2 of the lowest are those 2. And the average annual wage by industry, there's the Washington County fair market housing rate, which is essentially the ability identified by HUD to be able to afford a home or afford rent. And agriculture, hospitality, and retail in Washington County are all below the affordability for a 1-bedroom. So we're sort of identifying and understanding that there's a great amount of need and competition for available housing. This isn't information that people don't already know in this community, but it is information that we've been tracking for some time. Next slide. So the 2020 housing demand and market analysis concludes with 3 new housing project types to address several clear realities and priorities. Looking at Matterhorn Valley demographics, the financial and housing demands of an aging population, looking at workforce housing that's in short supply, and younger households and families that are seeking opportunities to grow roots and permanence in the Matterhorn Valley. The 3 housing recommendations in the 2020 housing demand and market analysis are workforce rental housing, senior rental housing, and ownership projects oriented towards first-time homebuyers. It's not saying that those are the only needs, but they were the ones identified based on the demand identified through the study. And really, housing project, if you read through the study, there's the housing project recommendations have target markets and rental ownership structure, project scope, and bedroom mix, and a variety of detail of these different types of housing types. But there's a fair amount of information within that 2020 study. Importantly, the best location identified are village areas where we have infrastructure, where there's access to essential services, where walkability, so that's a key point in the study itself. Also recognizing there's limited options to build projects that meet the need within villages because of limited land. And last slide. And the last thing I wanted to highlight, the 2017 Matterhorn Valley Housing Study had this housing opportunities mapping project, where the Matterhorn Valley Planning District looked at all of the municipally owned land in Waitsford, Warren, and Faison, and mapped all of those locations, and then met with each of the towns to say, you have land currently in ownership, are they appropriate, is any of that land appropriate to seed a housing project? And so we met with each of the planning commissions and vetted each of those parcels. And I will say that the town garage site was one of those locations that was identified in 2017. It's been on the docket in Warren for quite some time. It was identified as a long-term priority, which I would say 9 years later, it fits within that period of time. But I couldn't, this discussion, I think fits within the broader context of the efforts and other discussions that have happened previously. And so I'm happy to answer any questions, be here through the duration of the discussion, but just wanted to provide a couple context items.
Thank you, Josh.
Oh, hey, Josh. Hi, and I'm Zach Watson. I'm the Executive Director for Central Vermont Habitat for Humanity. Sorry for being late. I haven't been to a Warren meeting before, so I wasn't sure if you guys were going to have me come in with pyrotechnics, and that didn't happen. So I just heard Josh talking and came in. But we're really, really grateful that you all have invited us to come into your community to talk about this really exciting opportunity with the garage site. I don't know if folks had a chance to get introduced to our team that are with us today. So I'll just, this is really a community discussion initiative, and so there's a lot of folks already involved with Habitat that live right here in the community. So Michael Palmer is... I did already, yeah. All right, well, with that. So Karen Winchell is actually a Waitsfield resident, and she's on... Faceton, oh my goodness. And she's on our board of directors. Edward McDonough is our board president, and he is a Warren resident. Charlie Kale is a Warren resident and also on our board of directors. Also joined today, Peter Hurahan, who's not going to be speaking, but a longtime Habitat volunteer on our building committee and a retired engineer. Daniel Raddick, a former chair for the Planning Commission, will be speaking with us today. And also joined by Greg Gossin, who's an architect and principal at Gossin-Bachman Architecture. So just a little context of why we're here today, in case folks didn't know it. We were approached by, well, folks are aware that the town is looking for uses for the existing town garage site. There's a new town garage coming in. So we were approached by the Planning Commission, who invited us to come and speak with them about this parcel and to talk about what a Habitat for Humanity partnership with the town for this parcel might look like. With initial conversations, we also did a site visit and then spoke to the Planning Commission about it. It became pretty apparent that this is not a very straightforward or easy parcel. And that's why we made the recommendation to the Planning Commission that we enter into an option agreement with the town, which gives us the legal right to purchase the parcel, but it also gives us the time to invest in a feasibility study so we can understand the opportunities on the site so that we can hopefully develop something there. So the Planning Commission accepted that recommendation, sent it to the Select Board, and then the Select Board invited us to come do this presentation here, which we're very grateful for. We're going to, Josh, thank you so much for that intro there. So we invited Josh to come and speak about this. Actually, when I first started this job 6 years ago, I attended a forum that the Mad River Valley Planning Commission put on. And so it was really cool to, full circle back to what we were hearing about in that presentation, all this excitement around housing and what we need to do and what we can do. And I talked to Josh later and found out that this town garage was actually one of those parcels, which was very cool. As part of the agenda, we'll then have Dan Raddick. Daniel will come up next and sort of talk about the Planning Commission's approach. And then we'll have our Habitat for Humanity volunteers and crew talk about the process and who we are, who we partner with, and some of the financial constraints and things like that around housing. And Greg Gossin will then finish off with a discussion about site opportunities as well as an approach to doing developments. And then, of course, this is a discussion, so we want to leave as much time as we humanly can to talk with you all and answer your questions. I also want to acknowledge that we are aware of the Valley Reporter's recent article about the Planning Commission's discussion of priorities for this parcel. And I know some folks are maybe here because of those priorities, and I want you to know that we saw those. And we are actually going to address each and every one of those priorities throughout the presentation. It may not be to your satisfaction, that's okay. This is a discussion, and we'll have opportunities to talk about that later on. So with that, since we've moved past Josh, I'm going to invite Daniel to come up and speak about the Planning Commission's report.
Thank you, Zach. And thanks all for being here. I'd like to start off with just a couple of thank yous to the Select Board for inviting us back. To the Planning Commission, as Zach mentioned, I'm no longer on the Planning Commission, but I was very involved in some of the discussions leading up to the invitation to Habitat to come speak to us. So thank you, well, Michelle Bennett. I don't know if I don't see Michelle, but thank you, Michelle. And Jenny. Oh, there she is. Thank you, Michelle. Thanks for letting me come up and speak. With that, some of these slides, I think, if you could go to the next slide, Rebecca. It's a discussion that some of you may have seen before about what happened, what was the Warren Planning Commission doing, what led us to recommend to the Select Board that the Select Board explore partnering with Habitat. And next slide, Rebecca, please. And I guess it would really start back in 2025 as we were leading up, well, really it was leading up to the Select Board and the bond vote, anticipating that bond vote may pass. That naturally the question would be, well, what should happen on that garage site? Housing was, as Joshua referenced, for a long time, housing has been one of the exciting options. Not the only option, but maybe the most exciting option. So we started having conversations with housing groups, housing experts, regional PCs. We went through a grant application. We met with Downstreet. We invited local developers, architects, some larger local employers to gauge their interest in whether they wanted to take the lead on developing the garage site. We engaged the UVM sort of junior engineering team to see if they had some better ideas that we hadn't thought of. And I guess that leads to the final bullet there, that lots of interesting ideas were shared. But despite our best efforts, there wasn't really an action plan formed. Nothing really concrete. No developer or employer raising their hands and saying, we want to build here. And then through Michael's introduction, we met Habitat, and Habitat, were the only ones to put up their hand and say, hey, we're interested. This sounds really cool. Next slide, please. I guess one of the big points I want to make is in the process of educating myself, in the process of the Planning Commission educating itself, what would it take for the town? What would it take for us to do an affordable housing project, say on our own? And the reality was, or I think we quickly discovered, it's an incredibly daunting process for a small town without dedicated housing staff to make any progress whatsoever. First of all, to do an affordable housing development, you need to access funding, whether state or federal or housing tax credits. We don't, certainly the Planning Commission, and when I was on it, doesn't have that expertise. I don't think there's a lot of that expertise in the town. You have to understand financing options, have relationships with banks, going down the list, understanding a lot about infrastructure. Even just, if we're able to create affordable housing and the desire is to maintain that in perpetuity, how do you do that? What are the best options? How to maximize community participation? We try, obviously, in town government, how to navigate regulatory approvals, construction, project management, quality assurance, income verification, affordability measures, tracking progress, all of which means, I would say, a very heavy lift. Frankly, I think too heavy a lift for a small town to do on its own. Next slide, please. That led, I think that led us to think that, we really ought to consider partnering with an affordable housing developer. First bullet, first of all, there's a tremendous amount of expertise required. As a small town, we have very limited resources. At the state level, affordable housing experts have said in such case, partner with a nonprofit like Habitat that can help guide a small town through the process. Habitat obviously has the expertise and a proven track record. The second part is really on the resources, or who pays for it. Again, I've learned through the process, through the engagement, that because there's very limited resources available for affordable housing in the state as a whole, Vermont housing agencies, they don't take flyers. They want to deal with established players they know who do the job well. And in our region, that's Habitat for Humanity and Downstreet. And those are the folks who are able to access state funding much more easily than anyone else. Next slide, please. And I think there are only 2 more slides after this. Maybe it's only 1 more. But just as Zach mentioned, that garage site has some really great pros and has some challenges. The pros we know are the proximity to the school, the village, rec fields, it's town-owned land, obviously huge advantage. It has wastewater infrastructure. The challenges, just being used as a town garage means the site may have some complications. There's an underground fuel tank, there's salt piles, there are buildings on site that need to come down. There are wetlands there. We've been told there may be deer fields there. So site feasibility and then a site remediation work will be required before any development can take place. Last bullet here is the importance of a feasibility study. It's really, as Zach mentioned, it's really the feasibility study that will tell Habitat or any other developer, what can we build here and where? Is this suitable for housing? Sure.
Zach had mentioned that this isn't an easy site. Do these challenges summarize what Zach was referring to?
Yes, yeah, I think that should capture all of them that we know so far. that we expect, the obvious ones. Next slide. Maybe if we'll go back to what Joshua mentioned, there were 3 options from that housing demand study. 2 of them were sort of rental options that the valley needs. One of the issues I just want to point out with the rental properties is obviously a hands-on property manager is required. And we've heard in general that local for-profit property developers are really not interested in building rental housing, or especially in being property managers. And again, the town itself doesn't have the capability to act as a property manager. Quickly turning to the Downstreet model, which is the other sort of big, the nonprofit. They build typically large kind of box construction. There's one going up in Waterbury now, you can see. Often they're 30+ rental units. Often in a single building, ideally from their perspective, and they favor larger population centers like Waterbury, Montpelier, Barrie, that have public transportation, job opportunities, etc. And the last bullet there is, unlike the rental model, as Zach and team will tell you, the Habitat model is a permanent homeownership model. For better or worse, it's not a rental model. The houses, if Habitat builds the houses, they are not going to be rented out. And is there one more slide, or is that the end?
Should be the end.
That's the end. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
I promise I'm not going to talk all night tonight, but so as a affordable housing nonprofit, we are not immune from traditional market trends that are impacting fair market developers. So I want to talk a little bit about the cost of construction and why it's there's a lot of risk involved with it today, and why we're not seeing a lot of speculative housing, basically why it's too expensive to build and make a profit today. The first one is that land costs have gone up by 40 to 70% since 2019. This means that there's a substantially higher upfront cost just before you even begin construction. And a lot of that has to do with, what I'm going to talk about at the end, which is the buildable lots of land that are in rural areas here in Washington County. Overall, a lot of these are going to contribute to the second bullet point, which is construction costs have increased significantly since 2020, 30 to 50%. When I started here in 2020, we were building houses for, around $175,000, $200,000. Single unit houses now are being built for closer to $400,000. So these are real costs. And the cost per square footage for a private developer is somewhere between $375 to $500 a square foot. We build close between $280 and $300 per square foot. So we're pretty close to that, but still a little less than what fair market is looking like. A good and a bad is the median house prices have also gone up. So the cost of homes, the sales price, has gone up, which is actually good for developers because it means that you can incur more costs and still hopefully make your money back. But it hasn't gone up enough to keep up with the cost of construction. So it's gone up, but not enough to make construction viable. And it's also gone up, which means it's pricing people out of the market. So there's no longer workforce housing available for folks out there, or what there is not necessarily the things that you want to live in. It requires a substantial amount of investment to make it livable. Mortgage rates or interest rates have doubled. So this is a double-edged sword for contractors, construction workers. This is construction financing. Construction financing is closer to like 9 to 12%. That's a mortgage rate. So now your cost of financing construction is also driving up your total cost of construction. But a 3% to then 6.5 or 7% mortgage rate is greatly diminishing the buying power of purchasers out on the market. Even a single percentage increase in interest is drastically reducing how much somebody can afford to buy. So it's making it so people can't actually go and get a mortgage. There's been a big, well, I don't know if there's been a decrease in labor and subcontractors in particular. I think we can all speak to that, and something we've experienced firsthand. I think some of it might have been that some folks going through COVID just said, I'm not going to try to get through this, I'm just going to retire early. And so we have a lack of subcontractors, but also a huge demand since COVID. And what this is doing is just, the market is dictating the prices. People are able to ask for a lot of money. They can ask. I don't think people are greedy. I think it's the reality of this is the market that we're in. And it's been slow for like 40 years, so good for them. But it makes it really expensive for construction. But it also means you have fewer contractors working on a lot of projects. And if there's one delay in one project, it's delaying everybody else. We're talking 6 to 12 month delays because something goes wrong. So and time is, quite frankly, time is money, especially if you have paid staff working on a project. So shortage of labor. And finally, I joke a lot that if you've got a flat parcel on municipal water and sewer, please sell it to us. We take it because they're really hard to find. Most of Vermont lots that you're seeing in the market today are on steep slopes. They're in wetlands, they're in floodplains, they have bad soil conditions. It takes, you either have a complicated zoning or extensive site work, and then there's no municipal infrastructure. There's no wells or septic tanks. That means that you're spending $40,000 to $80,000 in pre-development costs just to be able to have a house there. So there's a lot that's contributing to the cost of construction, all this getting us to a place that it is too expensive to build houses for profit. There are some caveats in there, obviously. I think scale is an important piece, but that's why we're not seeing a lot of speculative housing out there today. So with that, I actually will invite Charlie, Karen, and Ed to come up, and I'm gonna shut up for a little bit and let these guys hang out and lead the discussion.
Thanks, Zach. I know how hard it is to shut up. Again, I'm Ed McDonough, the president of the board, a non-paid employee, so to speak, of Habitat, strictly volunteer. What we thought we would do is spend a few minutes sort of describing what we're all about, how we operate, how we proceed, and frankly, why we've been successful at what we've done, which is to build affordable housing. So I want to start off with the proven model that we possess here. Central Vermont Habitat for Humanity was chartered in 1989, not that long ago, but it's one of nearly 1,000 affiliates of Habitat International, which has affiliates in all 50 states and, oh, by the way, operates in about 70 countries. So it's a pretty big operation. Our particular service area is Washington County and parts of Orange County, as well as some towns up in the Northeast Kingdom, including Greensboro, Craftsbury, Glover, Hardwick. Did I get all of those? I guess that's Orleans County. A key strength of our organization is that we operate within the greater Habitat International family. And as a result, we can tap into their systems, their ways of operating, their expertise, and into their sort of proven model for developing affordable housing. It's important to point out that we have built single-family homes as well as duplexes. But because we can tap into the expertise of Habitat International, as well as a variety of affiliates here in the state and throughout the country, we feel that we're in a position to be able to scale up our building process to include houses of different types. The other thing that I wanted to point out is that we have already had a very significant impact locally. We've done 33 new builds. We've conducted home repairs. We've done some disaster recovery work as well. All the while maintaining 11 active mortgages and to ensure that they have a long-term affordability, sorry. We also have a governance and staffing structure that is very efficient. Our board of directors operates very successfly to ensure that that occurs. At the same time, we opened up a Waterbury Restore. Is anybody familiar with that store?
Yeah, we love that store.
What that store does, of course, is to provide us with a source of revenue, but it also promotes sort of a community connection, if you will. And that's a very important element in Habitat's work as well. So if I could go to the next slide. A little bit about our process. One of the things that we need to do is to, before we do anything really, is to conduct a feasibility study. We need to know what we're getting ourselves into. So we need to look at things like zoning, we need to look at infrastructure, environmental conditions, and the overall feasibility of building on a particular site. Just as important, we need to engage in the community, to talk with members of the community, to find out what their concerns are, what their desires are, what they would like us to be doing on a particular site so that we can work together and collaborate. Second major thing that we need to do then is to purchase or have donated a parcel of land. Given our emphasis on affordability, obviously our preference is always to have land donated to us, because if we have to purchase, it means we're driving up the costs of our project, making it that much more difficult to come up with something that's affordable. Next step for us is to select a partner homeowner. And we have a set process that we put into place. We have a six-person team who selects homeowners for our houses. And they have to demonstrate that they have a need. They have to also fall within certain income guidelines. And they have to have the ability to sustain ownership over time. So it's kind of a tricky balance there. They have to be of a certain income level that is low enough, but at the same time high enough to sustain themselves. Next step is to build homes on the basis of need and partner with the homeowners. We do our building on the basis of volunteers. So, people like Michael and Peter, that's what we do. That's who we need. Without people like that, we don't operate very successfully. Now, in addition to that, we also expect and demand sweat equity from the homeowner. Several hundred hours, 250 hours of work on the part of those homeowners have to go into the building of the house. Okay? So that all of this is a way of keeping our costs down. We also provide affordable interest rates, sometimes 0%, otherwise very low percent mortgage rates, so that our partners can actually afford the home that they're going to move into. And then we reinvest the mortgage payments that we receive into the next house. And that's one of the most powerful parts, I think, of our model, and that is that the mortgage payments don't leave the community. So we just roll over the money that we gain into the next house. And that is essentially our perpetual model. Next slide, please.
Yeah.
This is me.
Yeah.
Okay. We build our houses to construction design standards for Central Vermont Habitat for Humanity, but they also are according to the Habitat International standards. We pride ourselves in building homes that are safe, that are affordable, that are efficient, and that meet ADA compliant standards wherever possible. At the very least, we make sure that they're accessible and even have visibility standards. Homes are designed to meet specific grant and funding requirements as well, so that we need to build them according to energy efficiency standards, accessibility, and resiliency standards. We do so by building them in sort of standardized ways, making them simple, not complex, so that we can continue to keep the cost down. From an energy perspective, we also ensure that they have or exceed Energy Star requirements certification, and they also align with Efficiency Vermont's high performance standards. We make sure that they incorporate passive solar design principles, and which take advantage of natural light and heat, so that we're reducing the energy demand year-round. In addition, we make sure that our homes are EV ready and solar ready. So overall, the goal here is to deliver homes that are not only affordable to build, but are going to be affordable to live in the long term, so that the cost of a home ownership isn't going to increase because of high energy costs that people have to incur. All right. So let me turn that over to...
Next slide. So we've been talking a lot about housing, which is, we spend like 99% of our time building houses, but the mission is actually our partner homeowners. That's why we do the work. That's why I work here. That's why everybody volunteers at this organization. And it's important, I think, for Warren to understand who is going to be your new neighbors in this development. So I have some quotes and testimonials from our partner homeowners. This is Abby Duncan. She's our newest partner homeowner. She bought a single unit house from us in Berry City. She was a partner homeowner. She helped build it. So that's her in the bottom left with construction site supervisor Bruce Landry. I think everybody thinks about a house differently. We kind of think about the houses in adult ways, especially if we come from a home that we've owned, like our parents owned a home, or generationally we were able to own a home. It might be a financial asset, it might be something we pass on to our kids, but home means something different to a lot of people, and for somebody who has never owned a home, or whose family has never owned a home, it can be as simple, it can be a lot of different things. And so for Abby, it was, for her, she's always a person that values space I live in. So home is probably the most important place in the world for her. This is Rose Volpe in the bottom right-hand corner. Rose Volpe is a single grandmother. She adopted her 2 grandchildren, already a hero in our opinion, because her daughter was not in a position to keep the kids, and so she is raising 2 high school age children on her own, and she's doing a great job, but her house was not big enough for her kids. So her granddaughter was living in the hallway. And so for her, the most exciting thing about owning a home is that her granddaughter gets to have a room with its own door and window. Actually, door and window were specifically the things they were most excited about. This is Mediatrice Muzima and her 2 high school age children. They just bought her house in Randolph, one of the duplex units. Mediatrice works for the state. By the way, and Abby is a middle school teacher. Mediatrice works for the state. She's also an immigrant. She's come a long way. I don't believe she ever thought home ownership in the United States was possible. And here she is with a place for her 2 kids and her mother. So it's a multi-generational house. And for her, ownership of anything small or big brings a sense of pride and joy. Most importantly, a home is a shelter where your body, soul, and family find refuge. It's a sanctuary, and I'm so looking forward to making this house into a home for my family. We're celebrating her housewarming this Sunday, which is really exciting. It's been a long process for her, so that's very exciting. A couple years ago, we did a contest with elementary school kids where we asked them to tell us, what does home mean for you? So this is a young woman from Montpelier Elementary School. She's probably in middle school now. And so she drew her house, and for her, quite succinctly, home is the best place ever. So these are our neighbors. This is who we partner with, and this is why we do the work. And Karen is going to talk about our selection process.
Hi, I actually did live in Warren for 4 years. But we couldn't afford to buy land in Warren, so we bought land in Facein. Now we couldn't afford to buy land in Facein either. Who are our folks? One of the things we certainly look at need, and that could be unsafe conditions. A lot of people around here, many of whom you know and probably don't know about them, are paying too much to be in their housing, whatever that housing might be, rental or even home ownership. Years ago, they used to say, oh, you shouldn't spend more than 25% of your income for housing costs. Now it's gone up. Now they're saying, oh, you can't spend more than 30% of your income for housing costs. It's very common for folks in Washington County to be paying way more, 40, 50% of their income on housing, and that doesn't leave a whole lot left over for food and all the other things you need to do. We look at people with a household income between, and it's adjusted for family size. This gets really complicated. I don't know how they do it, but it is based on the median income of Washington County or any county that we work in, that anybody works in. It's 80% down to 30% of the median income adjusted for family size. Now, what does that mean? It actually is probably more than you think. I have it here somewhere. Yeah, it's on the bottom, but it's hard to see. So, for example, 80% of median income for one person is $59,000. So we're not talking about very low income. We are talking workforce housing here. Because people who, if you make if you get paid $30 an hour, your income, that's still $58,000 a year. So this is, these are folks that are, these are your neighbors. And I know a lot of times people think, oh, it's poor people, it's poor people. No, it's people who are working. So the houses are not free. There's a mortgage. It could be anywhere from 0 to a couple percent. But as Zach mentioned, when you start getting up to 5 or 6% on a mortgage rate, it starts to make it less and less affordable. So this really helps the affordability. The thing that nobody ever mentions, it's not mentioned here either, is the other thing is even if you're renting and you want to buy a house, now you have to come up with a down payment. Hello, that's really difficult, especially if you're renting and you're paying like 50% of your income on rent, and now you're supposed to come up with $20,000 for a down payment. And then you want, even if you can afford to buy an inexpensive home, like $125,000, hello, good luck. It's probably going to cost you an arm and a leg just to live there. And you know, it will be hard to heat, it will need high maintenance. So this is a really good deal for people. Oh, we have all that. So one of the things that I know that people, this happened when I was at Central Vermont Community Land Trust too, it's now down the street. Oh, we don't want people from next door moving in. Whereas, because of fair labor, because of equal opportunity, federal law requires that we not have any kinds of residency requirements. On the other hand, since people have to contribute 250 hours, they're not going to be coming from Plains, Texas or Omaha, Nebraska. And secondly, it's mostly people who want to stay here and are having trouble staying here that are going to be applying to live here. This is a little aside, but when we did the Green Mountain Cemetery up in Waterbury Center, one of the neighbors was very upset. He said, oh my God, we're going to have people with kids running around barefoot and people outside with drinking beer with their cars up on blocks and everything. Well, he came to the open house and he came up to me and said, oh my God, I know all these people. So I think that's, can we have the next slide? All right, one of the interesting things is the houses are appraised at market value, which means your listers are these houses are going to be paying property taxes based on their fair market value, not on what the person's mortgage is. And then, as you know, because they probably won't be able to afford that tax, they like everybody else, they will be able to get a break based on their incomes and a percentage of their income for tax. So, but the town will get the taxes based on a full assessment. And what else do we have here? Okay, that's 30%. Okay, yes, we make sure that people are not going to be paying more than 30% of their income. And we have deed restrictions. I'm not going to go into all of the mechanisms, but be assured that these houses retain their affordability. They will stay affordable forever, even if they're sold, even if they're sold after the person has completely finished with their mortgage and everything else. These are permanently affordable houses to people making less than 80% of the income based on family size. There are 3 houses, 2 in Warren and 1 in Facein, that are Habitat houses. The one in Facein, Karen Smith, now owns it free and clear. She has paid off her mortgage, and she's, well, I don't know, many of you may know her. She's a wonderful person and is very happy there. I think that's, yeah, I'm not gonna.
Yes, that's good. The only thing I'll add is that in order, part of the deed restriction is that they have to be permanent residents of the house as well. So I know that was something that came up in the Valley Reporter article. They have to maintain permanent residency. It cannot be rented out and it cannot be sublet, things like that.
And one more thing about the cost of housing going up. 10 years ago or so, what is it down the street, we did manage, I think it was at least 10 years, I can't remember, Josh, managed to build the Wheeler Brook up on the access road. That is not one of those big box places. It's a really nice, affordable development. They can't do that anymore. I mean, that would now be just too expensive. So that's one of the sad things. We used to be able to do scattered site, we could do small projects, can't do it anymore. So.
Karen, is it because of development costs?
Yeah,
Just like labor and material costs?
and land costs, yeah. It's materials, I think, more than anything. It just,
Come on up, Charlie.
All right. Another part of that habitat model that's important for you all, my name's Charlie Kale. I live here in Warren up on Roxbury Mountain Road. I'm fortunate to have a house here that my grandfather built 50 years ago. Fallen to me that way. The habitat model is fundamentally community driven. You need to work with the community that we're building homes in. So it's not like we're building the homes in there, we're building it with the community. Some of the ways that's realized is the local building committee, where we have a committee of local volunteers who help oversee the site as it's being built and work with the partners as well as the community in the design and the construction. They work with local businesses to secure donations and contributions of materials. The homeowner selection committee, which was mentioned also, involves the local community, having 6 to 10 people on that homeowner selection committee. We also actively partner with businesses, community groups, and just organizations to help gather volunteers. Volunteers, as you've heard, is an important part of the building process, and we do that through an organization, say like Rotary. They're a good source of volunteers here in the valley. And we also are excited about the opportunity for workforce development, where we train people on new skills and technical ideas on building homes. We work with organizations like Youth Build, the Vermont Works for Women. Yestermara Design Build is also a local school that you probably know, where they do hands-on learning opportunities. So that's great pathways, and this is an opportunity for those students to have hands-on experience. It's really valuable. So in short, we work with as many people as possible in many different ways to get everybody involved. In long term, it's really a benefit of permanent, affordable workforce housing, adds to the local tax base, and we're creating community value here in Warren that I think is long lasting. So we look forward to working with you. See how it goes.
Thanks, Charlie. Now, we invite Greg to come up and talk about site selection.
Sure, my name is Greg Gossens. I'm with Gossens Bachman Architects, now called GBA. We do community-based projects exclusively. Actually, everybody who's here kind of talking about their chops of Mad River Valley connections. I worked for Bob Burley for 10 years, lived in Facein on Harris Hill Road for a bit. But now studios in Montpelier and in Burlington. But we do exclusively community-based projects, which means we do a lot of affordable housing, not at all. We talked about, a lot of people are talking about the site attributes. And yeah, every site is impaired. Let's just get right down to it. There are issues with every piece of property, particularly pieces of property that are in village centers or in town centers. We haven't been a great society of treating our land very well. But then again, every site has opportunities. So usually what we do when we start a project is we take a look at the property and find the technical, the environmental, and even just importantly, the social attributes of those pieces of property. We then usually have some sort of a public meeting to talk about it, an outreach meeting of some sort, which we facilitate, and we would work with Zach and the crew. And then from there, we go and we start finding ideas. We go through, and this is one we did for Habitat in Montpelier on a piece of property in edge condition, where the market said that basically Montpelier needed soup to nuts. For sale products, they needed large starter homes, smaller starter homes, affordable starter homes. They needed rental starter workforce housing, and they also need the typical low-income housing, tax credit housing. So what we did is we took the feasibility study after our site analysis and public outreach, came up with 3 ideas on how to use that piece of property. And we would probably be doing the same with this one. And then with those ideas, we sketched them out really quickly. We did some cost estimates, we did some infrastructure estimates, and we did some visual images so people could see what kind of the visual effect of what those options are. So here's one of them. We can go to another slide, please. Here's another one. You can see there are a whole different footprints going on, whole different images going on with the type of housing in here. And then the third one is the last option. Obviously, this one was really concentrating on single-family homes. But then, in that public meeting, we talked about the issues and opportunities and those various ways to utilize the site. This project is now, waiting to happen?
Waiting to happen.
It is, because on all of these, cost estimates have to be put into environmental analysis. I mean, these are like sketchy proposals with a lot of images, but there's a lot of technical stuff going on to make sure that this all works, that these are realizable schemes. So next slide, please. To show when that was built, this is Johnson, Vermont. In Johnson, this was a brownfield site right along the river, so the floodplain issues, brownfield issues, some access issues. Their feasibility study showed that, first of all, the community needed elderly housing for downsizers. So the first 3 buildings is an elevator building. That is downsizer housing. On the other side was for sale townhouses, for workforce housing, townhouses. We had 8 townhouses along there. And then the last building, the one on the very left, never got built. That was actually going to be a kind of an incubator space. Didn't get built. But the last one was your typical low-income housing tax credit, rental housing. So this one was built. You go to the next slide, please. Oh, skip the slide. It did show up. Well, anyway, that one was built. It was really successful, actually. Downstreet and Lamoille Housing Partnership were the 2 development partners with that one. It was one of the most energy efficient buildings in their portfolio at that particular time. And it's a raving success. And then, oddly enough, Johnson had catastrophic flooding a number of years ago. I'm not sure. That project was on the edge of downtown. Now downtown is moving towards that project. They just moved the library, picked it literally up, and moved it across the street from it. And now we're repurposing part of the Johnson State College campus into affordable housing, which is right up the road from that. So it's kind of funny how the village is migrating towards that housing project. This one is in White River Junction. Now, White River Junction is, if you can't afford to live in Hanover, you live in White River Junction. In White River Junction, their needs analysis said they want workforce housing in a rental basis because there's a high turnover of workforce in that area. So they wanted affordable workforce housing in a rental basis. These are all townhouses for this one here, because that's what their feasibility said. This was also an impaired site, linear, it's like a shotgun site, so there was some pretty weird attributes with this one also. But it came out really well, and this is there's no fossil fuels. This is our first kind of fossil fuel-free project. It's really successful. The energy performance has been fantastic on it. And you can see we integrate community stuff. There's a lot of young families, starter families in here, so there's a lot of community-based stuff. Community gardens, there's that parklet there, there's a kind of a skating, basketball, 4-square area off to the side, a little sledding hill. So I mean, you want to do is you want to take advantage of the site attributes when you do these things, because like I said, every site's got some issues, but also every site has opportunities. And damn near all the time, the opportunities come almost free. The issues can be really expensive. But the opportunities, particularly the social opportunities, you're a fool for not taking advantage of them. And I think this piece of property has a lot of opportunities. It's south-facing, near the school, walkable to the village. I mean, there's probably all sorts of connections. I mean, there's some good stuff happening there.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Are there homeowner associations with all these types of projects?
No, that one is managed by Twin Pines Housing Trust. Now, we also did one for Twin Pines Housing Trust in Hanover, a workforce housing project that was both a home ownership model and a rental model. And then there is an HOA, and that one actually had 4 development partners during the course of the project. So a lot of times these opportunities with these sites and what presents themselves, you have to start taking on development partners. That one had 4 development partners, but there was an HOA on that one. They have tenant groups. They have tenant meetings. I mean, these outfits really have great, like there's a community room here where they have tenant meetings on a regular basis, tenant potlucks, those type of things. They really try to get the social kind of connectivity really, really strong on all of these projects. So again, there's those things, that's operational, that's darn near free. I mean, you just have to have somebody to do it. So, and that's really, really important on these projects. Any other questions? Yeah.
So, Habitat for Humanity is purchase, typically,
Yeah.
residential purchase. That's how this all started in the beginning of this conversation. When you have something of this nature, and you're involved in that as Habitat for Humanity, how do you work in the mix of also having a rental option with workforce housing?
Well, they would have to take on a different development partner. They would partner
So
with
it
somebody.
depends on the partners that you work with to make those sort of things
Right,
happen.
right.
Okay.
Yeah, you chase the feasibility study and whatever the site starts
I
wanting
just
to be.
needed that for clarification, because, the
Yeah.
emphasis typically seems to be with Habitat for Humanity, that it's purely an ownership.
Right. But it was interesting on this one, the developer, which was a not-for-profit,
Yeah.
we did condominium documents and filed them with the Secretary of State just in case they want to go sell.
Okay.
And I think pretty much every one of the projects I've been working on in the last 10 or so years on the private developers, we do condo docs on all of them, even if it's going to be a rental property.
So,
And it's just one of those things that, if the market starts switching, the developer can switch with the market.
so what part of that project did Habitat actually do?
This one, nothing. This was not a Habitat project.
Oh, okay.
It was just an example of workforce housing that we have done.
All right, got it.
Construction-wise, I mean, people were talking about construction-wise, this one's all panelized. We've been doing modular and panelized a lot lately. But also, with these guys, you've done
Panels.
Panels.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can even use those economies of scale, even in the habitat framework.
Thank you for that clarification.
Cool, thank you, Greg. Last slide, and then we'll get into discussion, or one more slide. Oh, we missed another picture
That's where it was.
from Johnson.
That's the LIHTC, that's the low-income housing project, part of the Johnson project, from one of the townhouse terraces.
Was that a Habitat? Do you have
No,
slides of
no.
Habitat?
Low-income housing tax credits are exclusively for rental projects. So that was with Royal Edge or Downstreet, or who?
That was the Memorial Housing
Memorial Housing
Partnership
Partnership,
and Evernorth.
which is now no longer, right? Memorial Housing Partnership is now Downstreet. I think Downstreet.
It's downstream.
Just down the street, yeah, that's right.
Next slide. So, and next slide. Well, pictures. Great. So I think, before, as we wrap up and sort of before we get into questions, I think, Greg has made clear that there's a lot of considerations that go into developing a site like this. And this really isn't a straightforward parcel as far as we can tell. And for us, our first steps to understand what's possible on this site is to understand some of the pre-development costs, the constraints. We don't know the opportunities either. As Greg pointed out, there are opportunities. But what is infrastructure going to cost? What is demolition of the buildings going to cost? What are the environmental remediation costs? By themselves, some of those costs can be substantial. Altogether, they can be more really substantial. So, and then after that, it's really about trying to figure out how many units we can develop here. And that is dependent on zoning and site constraints. But please know that we actually are committed to maximizing density. As I mentioned before, there are not a lot of developable sites. This is relatively flat. It's on municipal sewer. We want to maximize the usage of this land. So that is our intent going into this, is to figure out how to maximize usage. And with substantial pre-development costs, basically the only way this will pencil out is with more units. And there's also almost no scenario where we would just build one duplex on this land, unless the town gave us the land, knocked down all the buildings, did all the environmental remediation, and put in infrastructure. Then it might make sense to do a duplex, but I don't think that's in the cards, and I don't think it makes sense for this parcel. We also want to emphasize that we do not want to create a habitat development. So Greg showed you a couple slides of the development that we were looking at in Montpelier. That was a mix of housing, of rental, for sale properties, LIHTC projects, as well as habitat projects. We believe strongly that our homeowners, when they are in a community with a sense of place, that they are successful both financially and socially. So we actually like the idea of having mixed income developments where we are partnering with a private developer. But at the end of the day, we really don't know what's feasible on this site. We really just don't know. And that's exactly why we are proposing to enter into an option agreement, which would give Habitat for Humanity the legal right to purchase the property. It'll allow for us the time to invest in a feasibility study, because it is going to cost money, and determine what can realistically be done there. And just as importantly, we cannot build something that is not feasible. So this leads to another important point of the structure of the option agreement. So any option agreement that includes conditions that predetermines the number of units that we build, that limits how the site can be developed, or require us to partner with a developer, those constraints may tie our hands to a point that whatever outcome may not be feasible, and we would not be interested in entering into an option agreement to explore a feasibility study. Because this is going to take a considerable amount of cost, and it may lead to an outcome that is not workable. And so that's why we're proposing that we enter into a 12-month-long period option agreement, that we can conduct a full feasibility analysis and explore site options, and engage the community through multiple design iterations. We also recommend that the town maybe pursue an environmental site assessment on their own. This is really the biggest unknown, as far as I can tell so far. And so this is, answering this early would benefit everyone involved. And I don't know where this went, but we would also, we would also like to have, instead of conditions attached to an option agreement, an MOU attached to it, where we outline our shared goals of density, of permanent housing, of mixed income as part of the approach for the feasibility study, so that we are incorporating those items in our feasibility study, but they don't necessarily prevent our project from going through if we can't actually meet all of those conditions, where if you put conditions in the option agreement, it would. Ultimately, our goal is to partner with the community and determine the best path for this project. And so with that, I will leave it open to questions. And you can go to my next slide. It's not that important, but I don't have answers. I'm a nonprofit. Thank you. So, or actually, I'm going to let Michael mediate here, or moderate, I should say.
Sure.
Yeah, we're just getting at the beginning of the whole thing, and all the feasibility and everything makes sense. But one thing you mentioned about home ownership and the deed restrictions as far as keeping it affordable and not rentable and all that. Who polices that? Who checks that somebody's been in a house for 15 years, hasn't decided, well, they gotta go with their kids, they're gonna rent the house? And who keeps track of all that so it stays in the pipeline as you're intending it to stay in the pipeline?
So we typically, the funds that are received, it's a mortgage subsidy, comes from the Vermont Housing Conservation Board. It's a number of other funding sources as well. We actually sell the houses to Downstreet first, and then Downstreet owns them for about 12 seconds and sells them back to the homeowner, to the buyer. So Downstreet now becomes the steward of the perpetual affordability mechanism, and they do annual verifications of residency and not income, because we're happy for them to become really wealthy and build their wealth there and be successful, but they do verify residency. And since it's a deed restriction, if they go to sell the home, then that would come up in a title search, and it would trigger ourselves, because we also have a right of first refusal, and Downstreet to get involved to make sure that the sale is done properly. Actually, the shared equity covenant does allow for the homes to be passed on to family members. So there's not a restriction in that way. You had mentioned families. Is what made me think of that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thanks.
April Smith, I live in the village very close to the site. Question for the select board. Is the town in any way in a position to consider donation of the site to Habitat?
I think that's still up for discussion. I mean, I don't personally, I don't think there's anything that rules that out. But I think that's part of the public feedback process. For me, I want to know whether the residents and taxpayers would support donation versus having to make some money off of that land.
If this opportunity didn't advance, what are the other opportunities for that land, for the town, if any?
I think that the engineering students put some possibilities out there. What was it, alternative, or a second school building, a park, a parking lot, parking area.
Rec center.
Rec center, right. I mean, nothing really that's, Michelle? Sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna give one more answer to that, which would be, there's always the possibility of selling it to a different type of developer.
Right. Yeah, maximizing what we could get from.
It's the answer, there's no covenants. The town owns the property outright, so it can do anything. So that's, well, yeah.
I guess my question is, I'd like us to consider that, like what are the steps that we would need to take for the town to actually consider that, to make this project more feasible?
Can people please say their name before they ask questions, members of the public?
Yeah, I think April announced herself, April Smith, and then...
Yeah, I heard April.
And
Okay.
then Jenny responded that the land is owned outright, Jenny Felice. There are no covenants, and Michelle Bennett said that we could alternatively sell the property to a different kind of developer, right?
Thank you.
Is that helpful, Lisa?
Another question, April Smith. Have we done any environmental assessment in the past decade of that site?
There was a brownfield study done in 2008.
Say, not the last decade.
Yeah.
The 2008 was the last one.
Yeah, and it did not suggest that there were significant remediation needs at the time. But it would need to be redone. And Zach, I believe when we spoke, we talked about that environmental feasibility costing $3,000 to $5,000, is that what we said?
Don't hold me to it.
Yeah, but it was somewhere in that ballpark. It wasn't like, 20 grand.
Right,
It's
right.
a relatively approachable sum.
So that seems like a natural next step for the
Yes.
select board to consider, to advance that.
I think so. We haven't had any of these conversations. This is also our first time really talking with Habitat and wanted to make sure that the community was involved.
Question back.
Hi, I'm Michelle Leibowitz. Can you speak to, you said that you were selling it to Downstreet and then quickly turning back to the owner. You said something about what is that ownership process for accountability?
And so Downstreet, the ownership is owned by the buyer, our partner homeowner.
But it was equity?
Shared equity model is our perpetual affordability mechanism. It's called shared equity, and it restricts resale so that the homeowner at the time of sale gets all their equity that they put in the homes, how much they paid towards their mortgage. Plus they keep 25% of the appreciated value. The house will have appreciated by 25, whatever it's appreciated by, they get to keep 25% of that. The remaining 75% of it gets reinvested as an additional subsidy, so that it's affordable for the next family. Because if it's appreciated, it's no longer affordable for somebody at that income level. And so you need additional subsidy to make it affordable for them.
I would say, just as we go forward for the town, to look into that in a little bit more detail, because I think it has some wonderful aspects of maintaining affordability for the next generation. It also reduces the idea of someone having equity to be able to build equity for their own family wealth, and that's part of why you buy a home. So as some of these purchases in the past, and you all know this way more than me in Vermont, has restricted who's willing to buy in, because they understand some of the potential backside, they're not getting the same upside on the equity growth. So way ahead of the cart before the horse, but as Warren looks into this, I'd say look into that financial scheme a little bit more, because it's a real benefit, because it does maintain affordability, but it restricts some of the equity growth outcomes positively.
And it's a good point, and it's come up before. Some of the grants, subsidies that we receive are actually forgivable after a time as well. So Federal Home Loan Bank of Boston, for example, which can be up to $75,000 or something like that, is actually forgiven after 5 years. So even if they've only been there for 5 years, all of a sudden you get $75,000 in equity in their home. But our model is focused on perpetual affordability, and there aren't a lot of, so shared equity is basically you have to figure out how do you make sure the home stays affordable without the need to constantly reinvest in new subsidies in it. Because it actually, if you need to keep doing that, it's not a perpetual affordability mechanism. So this is a way that you're able to keep reinvesting. What you're talking about is a little bit different goal-wise, but our homeowners, when they are at home for 20 years and they sell, they walk away with $80,000 to $100,000. That's a really good down payment on a fair market house.
I could add that that model has been in use by the nonprofit, the down streets of Vermont for at least 30 years, I think. It used to be a separate program from Habitat, where Vermont Housing Conservation Board would give the homeowner $20,000 down payment in return for the shared equity situation. So the downstreet knows what they're doing in terms of monitoring this. Been doing it for a long time.
Another question?
Yeah, what would you estimate?
What's your name, please?
Excuse me?
Could you just say your name for the...
Oh, sorry, Harry Bigelow. What would you estimate the cost of the feasibility study would be for the site?
So it's not, we have some estimates, and it kind of ranges from your initial architectural and engineering feasibility study to getting all the way to engineering, and it's, so I think it starts at, these are numbers off the top of my head, so I can't remember. But I think the initial 2-month engineering study is like $5,000. To get to the fully completed site design, I think it's close to $100,000 or $150,000, somewhere around there.
Jenny Felice, Planning Commissioner. And thank you again, this is really great. And I like, Zach, that you remind us the goal, I think, is to get people in houses. The goal is to build housing here. And we're really excited about this site. I'm sure we'll looking forward to that actual engagement where we have pictures of the site in front of us. And you've heard the Planning Commission has that list of priorities and has a vision for like a development that's mixed. We have our, pie in the sky, goals for us too. But if you could speak more to your vision of the site. So right now the parcel, it's connected to the school. It's a big parcel. The town garage, like the cleared space, is kind of an acre. So we're envisioning Habitat is going out and looking at that cleared, already improved land as where you're going to site your houses. And the Planning Commission has thrown around Habitat Building 4, maybe there's room for 8 total, maybe there's room for 16 total. You'll look at the zoning, we know the zoning for an acre, like the maximum is like 8 if we subdivide an acre. Have you thrown around what you want to see in the option to purchase? Like, what's your minimum number of units if we say to you, we're going to find another developer?
Yeah.
Like, what is that?
So we really don't know. I think the study that the most information we have is what the students did at UVM. There's a really great map that they used, a topographical map, where you can see sort of this acre and a half, which is flat. And then the rest of it is either steep banks coming down from the school, or rivers on this, or a stream on this side, and then going off into a wetland over there. It's really sort of hemmed into this acre and a half area. And what we can build there, the number of units we can build there, again, we want to focus on density, so the highest amount we can, not a skyscraper, but as many units as we can, so that there's a lot of options there. That's actually dependent on what the size of the acreage that is sold to us or given to us. Because in order to get that number of units, we need the amount of acres that is required in a PUD to create those numbers of units. So you said it's 8 units per acre?
Right now that's village residential, and Ruth can also, support me if I'm wrong on that. Correct me if I'm wrong.
If you have an acre and a half, you're looking at a total of 12.
Right, so maximum for 1 acre is 8, but with an acre and a half, 12, as our zoning regs are written for that.
So this parcel is, my understanding is it's part of a much larger parcel. So if you decide to just carve out that acre and a half, yes, then we would be limited to 12 units, right? But if you carve off like 2 acres or 3 acres, now, I'm gonna blow this, but yeah, so it's, the number of density is based on the total acreage. So if it's limited to an acre and a half, yes, it's going to be 12. If you do 2 or 3 acres, that allows for us to build more, because the PUD takes the allowable density and concentrates it on the buildable area of the land.
Yeah, exactly.
What I'm hoping is that you could give the town an idea of what would make sense for habitat. So if we're saying we want for the Warren Village for the next 2 years to focus on building 12 units on 1.5 acres, but we want Habitat to dive into 6 of those, and we'll share the infrastructure costs so that we can play with the other programs for those. Is that something you consider?
Yeah, I think we're open to all options.
Yeah.
We really don't know how many units we can build in that space. I think we've all seen the UVM map where they kind of put blocks here and there, and I think they came up with 12. I think you could probably put more there. I think they were pretty conservative in their in how they mapped out their buffers for the stream. But I think we could probably do more than 12. But ultimately, it's going to depend on the feasibility study.
And so part of what, I want to jump in and say we don't have a lot more time, so we're going to need to sort of cut it off at one point. But just to piggyback on what Jenny is sort of asking you, Zach, I think what you're getting at is that MOU that Zach was talking about with respect to the town and Habitat sitting down and saying, okay, how do we want to go about this feasibility study, and what are the important things that we want to be thinking about? To your point, maximizing density, having another partner. How can, what is the size of the parcel that we carve off? Who pays the subdivision costs, right? All of those things would be part of this sort of, I think Dan and I had talked about it, a working group that could develop an MOU working toward that feasibility study. Is that
Nailed it.
sort of what we were talking about?
Absolutely.
Okay, I think if we,
I just want to clarify one thing I'm a little confused about. You've mentioned Habitat developing the property, maximizing development on the property, and I believe you referred to Habitat partnering with developers. Another scenario that you're more mentioning would be, we say Habitat can do this part, and then the town goes out looking for other developers, right? So those are two
Yes
different
and
kinds of
no.
scenarios.
I think we're just saying we want flexibility in this development. And what does that look like to start today with building in that option for
But to
flexibility?
be clear, we could have
more than just the type of development that Habitat does, but have it go through Habitat rather than us having to develop.
Is that true?
No?
So we would, that's the type of language which we would support in an MOU for the option agreement. So if we get through an option agreement and there's not really a path maybe for a private developer, or the only path for a private developer is where parcels are sold to a private developer. And that's the only path of feasibility for this. And now now that option has been taken away from us, now the project is no longer workable. And so that's where the project no longer is feasible from our standpoint. So if those conditions are in the option agreement, that would be challenging. But that is our goal. And that's why I think it's important that we talk about where that is in the MOU and know that that's our approach going into this. Also, finding a private developer has been challenging. And part of what we want to do and explore with this, we know the constraints around private development right now. And there are ways that we believe we can have shared costs with a private developer to help make their projects pencil out. So we want to actually partner with private developers on these types of projects so they actually want to come in and do this, where if they were trying to do it on their own, it could not pencil out. We're working with Plainfield right now on the village expansion project, and there are private developers involved with that. We're talking about sharing subcontractors, getting the same modular developer, because we actually all benefit that way. So they're not building, we have to figure out how do we share what we're doing with them so they build as well.
Thanks.
If we could take like 2 more questions, and I'm sorry, I wish we could talk about it all night. We have a few other pressing
Madam
messages.
Stair, Warren, you have a lot of big projects coming down the pike that you're looking at. What's the capability of your organization to handle a big ramp up in the next 5 years?
We have a strategic planning retreat in the next couple months, led by our illustrious, fearless leader, Ed McDonough, and we do have a strong board of directors. We are just coming off of a 3-year strategic plan, which ramped us up from build every other year to now we build 3 housing units in the last 12 months. We'll build 4 more in the next 12 months. So we are already ramping up, and we plan to continue to ramp up to meet the need. But that's our goal, is in the next 2 years, assuming that's what the outcome of the strategic planning retreat is, and the goals and strategies of how we get that, we'll get there, will be baked into it, and we'll lean heavily on Habitat International and the other affiliates to help us get there. I'm feeling good about it.
Thank you.
Anybody that hasn't had a chance to ask a question and had their hand up, then please.
It's just a follow-up, Perry Bigelow again. On the feasibility, you said there's a 5,000 and a 150. Which one for you guys is where you decide to go or no go? Like after the 5 you decide go or no go, or after the 150 it's a go or no go?
I don't know. To be honest with you, I'm kind of looking at Greg, and maybe Greg can help us there.
The 5 would be a risk, because the environmental assessment would be very detailed at that point in time on cost estimates.
Well, I think we were talking about maybe doing the environmental assessment ahead of time, so if that 5 were just sort of design development stuff, maybe.
That would help considerably.
Yeah.
The 5 would get Zach and his crew more information for some of the questions you've been having about what the carrying capacity of that acre and a half could be, because there's a big difference between acreage and buildable acreage. So if 5 acres came with the property, but only an acre and a half was buildable, you could put a lot more density on it, if that made sense, and the feasibility could back it up.
There's also a big
But that 5,000 study would answer those questions.
Yeah. About that very tank, 5,000 gallon tank, is it intact? That's like the biggest question, I think, to start with. And that's a short money to figure that out, right? And so there's certain things like gating factors that would say, if the tank is fine, we keep going. If the tank isn't fine, then you can't put a well on the property, then we can't get fresh water. So I think there's several, kind of checkpoints before you say, let's spend $150,000 on it. What we'd say, these are definite no's. And we front load, I think, right, the project with those, if you can, figure out like density and,
Water.
feasibility. Can we get water? Can you get water? Great, if not, now something else. So I feel like we've been asked.
Yeah, I'm sorry, we're well over our allotted hour anyway. And we do have some important work to get to. But I guess before we just say goodbye, I think what the board is interested in knowing is sort of like, what does everybody think? Do we want to pursue this? And if so, how?
Yes.
Yes.
It sounds like a fabulous opportunity.
Yeah. Macon, I think I saw your hand up back there.
Thanks. I'll be brief. I used to be on the planning commission, and one of the last things I did was second the motion to keep this going somehow.
Nice to meet you in person.
Yeah, and it's great job today. Yeah, so I've got kids in elementary school. I live up the hill. I'm really excited to see this happen because I've been serving on local boards with many of you. It's really hard to get something going. And what's really appealing about this is Habitat brings its own infrastructure and experience. And honestly, we can talk all day about good ideas, but in the 5 years I've lived here, I haven't seen a lot of them happen. And we need it. I've got too many of my kids' friends that moved out of this community because it's unaffordable. And so I'm all for the details, but the big picture is like, we need this yesterday, and I'm really excited to see it moving, so thank you.
Just can you just sketch out like what a year would look like if we, like the option you said, that there's a 12-month option, does that mean you go through that year and then we're connected to you? Like,
What's the timeline?
Yeah, I'd like to.
Yeah.
A 12-month option gives us 12 months to conduct a feasibility study. I don't know if we would need the entire 12 months, but we have, during that 12 months, we can exercise our option to purchase the property. So as soon as it becomes evident that we can do this and we found a good design, maybe even before that, we can say, hey, we'd like to get this property. So it could happen in 6 months or it could happen in 12 months.
So we would have.
I think the bigger time constraint is probably us. Because we're volunteers and we meet twice a month. And it sounds like there is an appetite for setting some parameters around what Habitat could build or would build. That's something that we're sort of hearing from the Planning Commission with these priorities as far as what they'd like to see. And so I think the board and with public input needs to sort of decide, are we going to pursue an environmental assessment first and foremost before entering into the option agreement? And what does this working group look like that might be able to develop an MOU to guide that feasibility study? Yeah.
So if you could just pretend to wave your magic wand, what would the timeline look like for us to decide or to get the town or to get the subcommittee and all that stuff?
Yeah.
What do you see? Maybe it's too hard to tell, but like.
Yeah, I'm reluctant to say without talking to the rest of the board. I really, I think we have to look at what is on our plate currently. We are in the middle of a very exciting project, which is the groundbreaking of the new town garage, which will be coming up soon. So we have quite a bit on our plate, but I mean, personally, I love this and I would like to see it move forward, but I'm only one member.
So who actually writes the MOU?
I think that's something that the working group would need to do. And Dan has said he would be willing to participate in that working group. I think that's awesome, and I'm sure some of the other planning commission members may want to participate in that as well. And we would want volunteers to.
So it's Dan's timeline.
It's Dan's timeline. What's the timeline? Dan, when's that
She's the chair of the planning commission. I'm sure she has ideas. Throw them under the bus. Yeah, no, I mean, I think that, I honestly think because Zach understands the constraints,
yeah.
I think it's very important that whatever this task force is, meets quickly with Habitat, and we understand, yes, we have our own ideas, but they have to be reality-based.
Yeah.
So I think quickly engaging with Zach to say, well, what, you know, where, these are some of our ideas, what are the no-goes, what are the deal stoppers?
Yeah.
What works, you know, will be really important.
So
And I would like it to, I mean, to the extent I'm involved, I would like us to move very quickly, because I think this is such an exciting, fantastic opportunity, and it would be a shame to sit on our hands and not have, like Megan said, not do.
So to that end, I wonder, I think we would need more support than just the select board driving that train. And therefore, I wonder if there is value in asking all of you who would like to be part of that sort of working group that is talking with Habitat about what a feasibility study parameters would be. And we could jot down some names, and then the board can discuss if we feel like we're ready to give the go-ahead for that and get in touch. Does that feel like a good process?
I'm just trying to figure out how you're going to get the town to be participating and decide. That's my...
The broader town?
Yeah, like get the voices in.
Yeah.
Is that like we have a vote or something? Or
On what? On what?
on going forward, or doing the feasibility maybe for starters?
Well, part of your feasibility, right, is to meet with town groups and
Community
understand what they
outreach.
want.
Yeah, so
that's part of the public.
Habitat's going to do a whole lot of public outreach and working with the community, but maybe, Liz, your question speaks a little bit more to like, are we going to donate the land? Are we going to sell it and for what price? Are we,
No, it's really just what's the action plan? That's really it. Just like literally the timeline, like when is the feasibility, how do we decide? I think that's the first question, isn't it? The first question?
I think the first question.
How do you decide to do the feasibility?
Yeah, so the option to purchase agreement has to be drafted and signed between the select board and Habitat, and then Habitat will do the feasibility study.
Try your answer.
I nominate Jenny as president of
And so I would like to have that on the select board agenda, that we just present to you as a task force group and decide who's communicating with Habitat to get, what I would love is a template for an MOU and an option to purchase agreement, and what you would consider, because as you heard, the planning commission is saying, we feel like the town has this 1.5 acres, but we're not, and this is just the planning commission, we're envisioning Habitat on half of that. And that conversation needs to happen of, are you happy with 0.5 acre development, or are you not happy? Because we just need to know what you would like to see and how you make that decision. And so we just want to partner with you, but in a way that meets our vision.
Jenny, can you give the rationale to why half, since no private developers have raised their hand?
Well, just to give us the opportunity, because we can phase in, and nothing stops them from, we're there, you know, we want to work with them and not foreclose. Yeah, Michelle,
Yeah, can I speak to that a little bit? We're not just only targeting sort of the typical larger developers that would probably come to mind. We're also potentially targeting like small scale developers and coming up with small individual parcels that will be digestible for these small scale incremental type developers. So that might be sort of a different idea that hasn't really been discussed and not sort of the typical developer that might come to mind.
Got it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
This sounds a little bit like a shift from what y'all presented with us with about a month ago. Yeah?
Might be a shift.
Yeah. I'm not sure what to do with that.
So you're gonna collect names, maybe we agree to meet in the next 2 weeks, and if you give the go-ahead, then the volunteer team meets, we get the process going, the templates going back and forth.
Yeah, let's do that. Who is interested in participating in the working group?
Yeah, keep these names.
Yeah.
It's like Michelle, Adam, Dan, Jeff?
Yeah, Jeff Breer.
Michelle, Adam, Dan, Jeff. Is there anybody else?
Jenny.
Michael Palmer.
Michael.
Michael Palmer.
Jenny.
Yeah.
Can everybody just make sure that you sign in on the sheet?
Yes.
So that I have email addresses and stuff?
Please,
Great,
thank
yeah,
you.
will do.
And Michelle, you're on that too?
Yes.
Great.
Okay,
And if you give us the go-ahead, we'll get that group together in the next 2 weeks
great.
and start the, discussion, try to make it structured and purposeful. Keep moving.
Yeah, thank you all so much for the invitation. I have a 4-year-old who's got to go to bed.
I'm just gonna give us another minute for Camilla to come back. And then we'll start a conversation about the solar array.
And Rebecca, Lisa Lewis here. Do you have those slide decks electronically?
I can get that.
That'd be great. Thank you very much. I'll mute myself in there.
Just today.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, ready? Okay, we're on to solar array discussion for town garage. Everybody should have gotten the answers to our questions, updated costs. There's these different solar companies are sort of throwing around vastly different size arrays. And so I think
They all started with 100.
they all started with 100, so we have an understanding of who is, where from a budget perspective. And then it becomes a question of how much solar do we put on? And Harvey, you're with us, right?
And the question about adding solar, adding more than the 100 that we started.
Right.
Where did that come from?
I think maybe Harvey asked if we were, I don't think that Harvey asked if we were maxing out the capacity of the roof. Because the conversation around the return on the investment with solar made it quite clear that it's a really affordable form of energy. And so we have this roof, should we consider increasing the size of the array to feed the network of buildings that we're running that are not being fully supported by the solar array up in the school?
And did we get new numbers on the ROI with the addition? Like if they had?
No, I don't, I think the return on the investment calculation that they did was based on the building consumption with 100
we're oversizing it
If you-
and others.
Right, so the return on the investment, if you were to restrict it just to building usage, would be longer, but it will be serving other parts of the town that won't be paying for electricity. So I think it's, yeah, it is hard to quantify. So I think it's sort of, what do we want to do? Do we want to be providing more solar for our own electrical consumption? And is this where we want to do that? Do we want to do that later and stick with 100 kW? I feel like the 100 kW was sort of random.
Because it's not based on the building sequence. We don't even know what that is yet.
Yeah, it's just, it was an easily comparable quantity, I believe.
Like, just to kind of circle back, we set solar aside and said, well, if we have some leftover money, maybe we can do the solar now. Now we're talking about using up how much of that leftover money. In other words, if we said the 100K, oh, look, we have that much left. If we,
Yeah, right, like, do we still have that much?
Yeah.
It is still within, like, even if we were to add the 145 kW with Sterling, we'd be at where are those numbers?
341.
341, so we're still, so
It's
hard
not
to understand
Yeah,
this.
because it's not,
That brings us,
we don't have
so it looks like, what would it do? It would, we're still 270 below the original estimated cost to build. So if we added the 145 kW, we would be $70,000 over. 341, 269. We have 270 in the red, we add 341, the difference between 270 and 341. So, yeah, 30 and 40, 70,000 over the original estimate.
So it's not really doing what we said we were going to.
It would be, right.
Are we trying to keep our costs down?
I see what you're saying. It would then be, now we would over the original cost estimate.
Yeah, and that's not what we promised we would do.
Right, so if we kept it at 100 kW, we would still be under the estimated budget and within those boundaries.
Right, and that would, they're estimating that would produce enough energy for that bill.
And provide
give us a
investment within that
10 year ROI, is that right? What was the warranty on the solar?
25.
Warranty.
Yeah. What do you guys think?
I don't like the idea of going over our number.
Yeah.
I'm not comfortable with that.
Yeah. I think
If
if
anything,
anything,
I'm trying to decide, are we going to hold the number lower and not do the solar, and do the solar later, which was really how we went into this. And then we said, well, we'll see how it all turns out.
I think the piece where that changed is that we ended up with fixed bids, so we know the cost before, which is nice to be able to make the decision.
Yeah.
The other piece the piece that makes me nervous about waiting is that the commercial credits are expiring.
But, I mean, they are now, we have no idea what's going to happen in our political landscape in the next, it could go either way. They could come back and double, we don't know.
Yep.
So
if we did the 100 kW system, we would still be under our estimated budget by, Rebecca, let me get back up. Sterling, 226.
226, 142.
So 43,000?
Ish.
Yeah.
And
80,000-ish, under the original estimated budget.
And these are in the, like the re-arc bid sheet pieces. And then we have those other costs that are on us, that are still some variables. Like, so we're talking total bottom line.
Down, yeah.
43.5.
It's like our builder's risk Yeah, we've brought most of those costs down.
We can pull up.
I guess I thought we didn't have to decide this right now. What's the urgency to make this decision now?
I think we did find out from them, actually, I was confused about that too. The answer to when did we have to start in order to get the credits was sort of either it has to be started before, it has to be completed before December or started before July.
It has to be completed by December 2027 and
Yeah.
under contract by July of 2026.
No, but
is what I thought.
That's not really how he said it though.
What I know from REARC's perspective is that the numbers that we have, that we've been given by these bid partners, Green Mountain Solar, Sterling Mountain, and Sun Common, are only good until Thursday.
Yeah.
I mean, the range of these bids is huge.
It's massive.
Well, I think
Do we have a side-by-side that?
Yeah, I think Green Mountain Solar
Are they
is the
the exact same equipment, the same warranty, the same inverters, the same, we don't have any information here anyway that would give us some sense for why they're so different.
I think Sun Common and Sterling are comparable.
Yeah, I think Green Mountain doesn't want the job.
Yeah.
I think they just threw high numbers because they don't have the capacity to do it or they don't want it.
Do we know anything about Sterling? I mean, Sun Common is more well known to me. I just don't know anything, any jobs that Sterling's done or anything.
I don't know.
Does REARC know anything about them?
It seems to me like they work with them. I don't think they would present us with a stuff that they don't believe in. I think that's why we're hiring.
Maybe not a question.
Yeah, they can.
Macon Phillips, just a random question because of Sun Common made me think of it. We did Sun Common for our residential roof solar, and one of the value adds they had was like helping us avail ourselves of all of the incentive programs and sort of funding. I'm just wondering, I'm sure you've tried to look at it, I know capacity is limited, but are there like green energy programs that could help offset something? Because this seems like a simple capital question of like, we'd like to have more solar panels, we just can't afford it right now. But it seems like something someone interested in promoting solar panels would love to help with.
Well, Green Mountain Power has offered us a $63,000 incentive to do the building with all electric heat. So we're taking advantage of that. Neither REARC or Lehman Lampier has said anything to us about an incentive program for a municipality, like Efficiency Vermont kind of thing. I did have a conversation with someone who's been in the renewable energy sector for a long time and said it's not uncommon for a project like this to be funded by private investors and then they're paid back by the energy generation. What seems maybe silly there is that the rate that most private investors will charge on whatever money they do invest is likely higher than the bond rate that we're getting as a municipality. And so the question here isn't really that we don't have the borrowing capacity to put more solar on. We do. We have a bond available up to 10 million. We're just trying to be fiscally conscious with respect to our burden on our taxpayers and keep the cost down as much as we can while making smart decisions for the future.
Thank you.
Yeah. I would like to make this decision. I think REARC has been really patient with us. I think we've asked all of the right questions. I think it sounds to me like you guys are wanting to stay, if we can stay under the originally estimated budget and do the solar, that's great. That sounds like a 100 kW system is what would fit within those parameters, at least with Sterling Mountain.
So just to Harvey's question about why we have to decide now, what I was looking for in Bert's, the back and forth, the yellow, purple, green, blue.
It's all in that, it's all in the notes.
He says, we were informed that you either must begin construction, oh yeah, that's where I read it. either begin construction or place 5% down on the system by July 4th, or have the system placed in service by December 31st. So the "or" is what's messing me up.
Well, because, ignore it, there's no way we're gonna have it in system by December 31st, 2027.
2027. But like, so
That's
that gives us
confusing
plenty of
statement.
time to be able to make the decision, not make the decision today. And the only reason to will be then the April 30th deadline for the quotes that we've gotten.
Well, I'm assuming it's probably scheduling, that they want to.
Yeah.
That's not what they've said.
Right, no, but I'm making an assumption, just because everybody that I've talked to about various projects, they're like, we need answers now in order to get you on the schedule for this year. But I'm just making an assumption that that's what's driving this.
December 2027 to have the solar in place. I mean, what we said was we want to build a building that allows us to put solar in place later if we needed to. So at bottom line, we're building a building that allows us to put the solar in 5 years from now if we want to. So I guess it does go back to the question, why do we have to answer right now that we want to do it?
Well, it changes the electrical setup. That's that $8,000 that Steve has confirmed in the way that they're gonna set that up.
I thought that was for the additional, I thought he confirmed that was for the additional.
I think what he's saying here is that we can accommodate the solar with the $8,000 ad instead of the $23,000 ad. But I'm just reading this email, so.
He said it like end of the day.
Right.
What I know from the construction world right now is the cost of oil is going up and therefore costs are going up. And I would love to lock in a price before that happens. I think that we publicly committed to including solar if we could afford it, and it feels like we have built a system where we can.
We publicly committed to building a building that we knew we could add solar, and that we would take a look if the numbers came in at whether we could add solar.
And
we did not commit to doing that.
We said if we have money, when we get the numbers back and we have money available, we would consider adding solar.
Yeah, we did not commit to it.
I feel like we have done that, and this is a smart decision. With a return on the investment in 9 years, I mean, my vote is that we add solar. And if we're comfortable with 100 kW, I think Sterling Mountain has the best price.
So has William Lamphere done all the diligence on making them apples to apples? That is, that they're the same products with the same quality, with the same reliability, with the same efficiency, with the same et cetera, et cetera? Is that what we're relying on? Because I don't see any of that information.
Sorry, Harvey. Can you say that one more time? I apologize.
The comparison of the different alternatives here, all I see is a number. Are we relying on William Lamphere to have done all the diligence around ensuring that the product we would get would be equivalent with the different quotes?
Yes.
That's on their bid leveling sheets.
Yes, also, what I was told by Bert, I think it's in those emails back and forth, is that we can say, yes, we want to do solar, and then we have a meeting and say, who do we want? Isn't that what he said to us at our last meeting? Because he wasn't sure that he was even going to have the third quote available for us.
So then why do we need to say this?
I think
Solar
we
if
need,
it's not so that he can tell the contractor.
I think we need to commit to either doing the solar or not doing the solar and what size array we think we're looking at. And then we can ask all of the questions that we want to of Sterling Mountain, Sun Common, or Green Mountain Solar and decide which one to take.
So my question again is, why does Bert need to know? What are the, why do we need to tell them, yes, we want to go with solar? What does that mean to them moving forward if we're not telling them who we're going with?
it means that we then ask them the questions we need to ask, and they start to organize with one of these subs that we do decide and get them scheduled. Does anybody understand?
I get it, what you're saying, but it feels like it's backwards to me. Like, we should be able to first have the conversation with all the subcontractors and then be able to decide whether or not we want to do the solar instead of we have to decide to do the solar and then talk to all the subcontractors. It doesn't line up with the sort of structure of the understanding each person's bid. We're going into it blind by just saying, yes, we want solar, and then we're presented with our options.
I totally disagree, I'm sorry. From a construction perspective, like, you decide to build the building, and then the subs come in and they give you your pricing, and you decide who you want to use and how you want to use them. Which is exactly the process that we just did. We designed this building, and then we sat down and looked at all of the subs and picked who we wanted to use. Which is the same thing we're talking about doing with the solar. Do we want the solar or not? Here is the range of pricing. Here's the range of
What
pricing.
about our answer is so important to them right now what does it hinge on? That we say, yes, we want the solar. So then they go to somebody else and say, okay, so they're doing the solar. Is there a different piece than going to the solar company and saying they're doing the solar? I mean, is there some other piece of it?
I'm not understanding what you're asking. What are you proposing to do?
Can you just say, yes, you're interested, and go from there without committing to, yes, we're going to do it, but yes, we're interested, but you obviously still have questions as to what's the difference between the 3 bids that you've gotten? Because it sounds like what you two are kind of mixed on is you're saying, yes, we're committing to it,
right,
but you're not really committing to it because you haven't gotten all your questions answered yet. Can you commit to, yes, we are interested in then pursuing what your options are? Or are you committing to locking into the price that is up there on the table? But it doesn't sound like that's the case because you haven't made a decision as to who you're going with.
right.
I guess I feel like we've asked all of the questions. What are the outstanding
Harvey
questions?
just asked the question.
Which one?
Who was speaking before Harvey? Sorry.
That was Quail, sorry.
Thank you.
Harvey,
I guess I'm still,
is it the same?
I'm curious as to our confidence level on the budget. We haven't even broken ground yet, and you seem quite confident that we're going to come in under budget. How confident are we, and what's the basis for that confidence?
We're working on a fixed bid project. These contractors have all committed to the pricing that they've given, and we've locked those prices in. If there will be any change in price, it will be us adding something or changing something. We also have accounted for this contingency, both on the owner and REARC side, that has sort of a slush fund that allows us to know we can cover minor modifications in pricing. Does that make sense?
Yep. I still am struggling with why we're being jammed to make this decision right now, to put solar in by the end of 2027. I guess there's this credit thing with July, but it's not July. I don't know. It's not real clear to me.
Rebecca, do you have any other, I mean, you guys apparently had a conversation with Bert. I'm a little confused by his saying you can say you're doing solar and not tell us which contractor. That's the part that confuses me.
Well, if you don't pick the contractor, what's the whole pricing until April 30th comment? Why would that matter if we didn't have to pick the contractor?
I think Bert is asking us to decide which contractor we'd like to use and what size solar array we would like to install. We've been given some advice on those sizes and the pricing. Rearc and Lehman Lanphier feel like Suncom and Green Mountain Solar are too high. They recommended using Sterling. They said Green Mountain's 170 kW was maximizing too much space on the roof. They didn't like that it was going all the way to the edges. They didn't recommend doing that. They're not sure why Suncom and Sterling are 10 kW off, but it's minimal. So they didn't feel like it mattered. The price was so different that it seemed obvious Sterling Mountain was a better deal. That's what I recall of that conversation.
What is the difference in price between Sterling and Suncom? What are their quotes?
Sterling is 226, 142, and Suncommon, is 282, 287.
60 grand difference.
Yes.
So I guess if this were me and it were my home, what I would want to know is, does Sterling and Suncom experience with them, are they equal in quality?
I mean, I think we had that conversation on our meeting. You were there with Bert and Steve.
Yeah, I didn't.
When they had faith in both of these. This was prior to the Green Mountain Solar quote. This was like almost a month ago now. Yeah. I mean, as an independent
I've just never
individual,
heard anybody, I just don't know anything about Sterling. I've never heard of anybody who's worked with Sterling, so.
I haven't worked with Sterling. I have worked with Suncommon, and I know that they are more expensive than everyone else I've ever heard of.
And they're still half of what Green
So
Mountain
yeah,
is.
which is crazy, right? Sorry, Sterling. They're in Hyde Park. I mean, if you guys aren't comfortable making a
If
decision,
we're not
then we're just
jeopardizing
not making a
anything,
decision.
then I would rather I'd rather hear more from these guys about what they believe the difference is between the two and why they think they're equal. That we'd be fine going with Sterling rather than how much work they've done.
I mean, we've gotten 2 quotes and there's a $60,000 difference. There's a lot of solar companies in this state. Can we get some more quotes?
I think
I guess you're saying
they put everything out to bid, and I think it was whoever.
I don't know that we need to do that. I just.
Why is there a difference, would be my question.
Yeah, it's enough of a difference to me that, and because it's not a company that anybody that I've talked to is familiar with, I'd just like to hear a little bit more about the work they do.
What I'm getting online is that they have 4.9 out of 5-star rating based on a small sample of Facebook reviews indicating high customer satisfaction.
So maybe they're brand new. We don't know anything. I don't know anything about them, so.
Better building by design.
Can you get some referrals from similar jobs?
I mean, yeah, again, get some references, who have you,
That's what I would like us to do, is ask.
for that kind of money, it's worth doing due diligence.
So what would we like to do? We would like to say, yes, we are interested in solar, and we think we'd like to use Sterling, but we'd like more confidence in their ability to perform. What is the question? And who's asking it? Because I feel like I've been trying to
I'm happy
communicate
to
questions and
follow
I'm
up with
falling short here.
Bert and Steve and express that, one, we don't know anything about Sterling. There's a $60,000 difference. What is their experience with Sterling and why would they recommend Sterling? Is it simply because they're a lower number? Or do they, can they say, yep, and we think all of our experiences that they're equal?
Okay. Great.
I mean, I'd like to see more quotes. How many people did we talk to? Did they send out 12 requests and they only got 2 back? Or, I mean, I'd like to see more information.
Do you want me to ask Bert how many responses they got? Or?
They set out an RFP, and these are the that responded to that RFP. We can ask them how many people they put it out to, and if other people didn't want to bid or don't have time, but, I mean,
We didn't ask that, Harvey, we didn't ask that question about everything else that was bid. So I guess,
thanks, Karen.
I'm not necessarily feeling that we need to do that. We did hire them for a reason. But what do you think, Joe?
My feeling is that this building is really expensive, and we promised to keep it as trim as possible. And I love the idea of putting solar on it, but I also love the idea of saving $200,000. And that we, if we really feel like we are at an energy pinch, that we could solve this problem at any point after the building is built. And I understand we're like being incentivized at this very moment to like do this because we're getting pressure to do that, and I think we're feeling the pressure to make a decision right now. And I don't know, I think the most important thing to do is to build a building and get that done, which is what we promised everybody to do. And then this is an add-on. It's not like a furnace. It's not like a garage door that we absolutely need. It's something that like is in some ways a luxury.
I think
That's my opinion.
I think the pressure is what's bothering me, and I'm not really understanding completely why we're getting this pressure.
Okay, so let's ask the question.
Is there another question you want me to ask beyond that?
I am comfortable with the answers that we've been given, and I feel like the addition of solar and being under our estimated budget is a really smart decision, and that the return on the investment and the reduction in costs over the next 20 years speaks for itself. Are we ready to move on?
Devin, is there a way to just give the update on the...
So I'm gonna do next.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Are we good? Yeah. Okay. Other business. We received estimates from Green Painters for work on the schoolhouse building. And under our sort of new program with KMK, we're committing to overseeing the maintenance on our buildings. Hence going out and asking for these estimates. I think what we'd like to see and what we talked about with Ruth's work is that we have a larger role in how the building is maintained. And so we're hoping, let's talk about these estimates. How do they feel? Do y'all have questions about the work that's being proposed? Prices, etc. Do we feel like there's something we should recommend Ruth's work do? And is this the way we want to engage in rehabbing the siding and painting of this building?
Is there, April, are you part of Ruth's work?
I'm on the East Warren Community Market Board, and we have been making requests of Ruth's work for years to fix the building, repair the building, paint the building, and it hasn't happened. So we're really appreciative of the town stepping in, getting a professional property manager, and making it happen, because part of the building, as you know, is rotting. Yeah, there's a lot of deferred maintenance, and it's been really challenging over the years working with Ruth's work. I understand it's been hard to get contractors lined up. So anyway, it's just good to see that there's some momentum.
Yeah. And so you know, April, what we have here is we have two different estimates. One is for rot repair and siding replacement, trim repair, that rotten sill replacement, and then the second one is for painting. And they're very, very thorough estimates. They provided us with pictures showing approximately where the siding is that needs replacing, and things that need fixing, as well as an estimate for the cost of the work, which is around $14,608 for that rot repair work. And then the painting estimate is, I think, at around $50,850, which is about $6,000 less than the other estimate that Roots Work had received. This is all still within the purview of what, the agreement between the town and Roots Work looks like, as far as them being responsible for maintaining the building. And I think we, the board, just sort of need to decide, does this scope of work and do these prices look reasonable to us? And would we like to recommend that Roots Work go forward with it? We are responsible for them putting the painting off last year, so I definitely want to.
Right, understood.
Very much, I felt like we needed to do a deeper dive into what level of siding repair needed to be done.
I did meet with Mac and Mitchell and Chad from KMK last Friday, and Mac, who is the carpenter for Green Mountain Painters, said that all in all, it doesn't look it from, my vision and your vision, but all in all, the building is actually in better shape than what it looks like. It's really the paint that looks like a mess.
Good to hear.
So, yeah. So, what this doesn't include is the rotted sill underneath.
Right.
I thought it did.
It does not.
So the 14,000 is for what?
Sill work should be done.
This is to replace the clapboards and the siding.
So that's the siding, not the sill.
Correct.
Includes sill work, corner boards, and any failed trim. Sill work should be done with rot-resistant materials such as cedar, white oak. Do they mean window sills? Not the building sill?
I think the
Right on the front project overview.
Yeah, I think they mean window sills because it's under trim.
So not the thing that was started last year and then postponed or
Right.
bail on. That needs to be continued, that work.
That needs to be done.
yeah.
So
that's separate from this, what we're saying is
apparently that sill work is separate.
It needs to be done.
And they said that's more specialized than what they can do. And Chad is in the process of getting a couple of people to come and look at that.
How does the timing, I don't do this.
That part
Like,
is
you have to do the
overridden.
sill work first.
You could start on a different part of the
Yeah.
building, because the damage there is right by the loading dock,
Yeah.
underneath the fire escape.
Mhm, exactly.
This is what needs to be
So
finished.
so working on getting that done wouldn't.
You could start on the western side of the building.
No, I do think you're right, that the sill work needs to be done before the
They get to that side.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And just from like, general rule of thumb, 14,608, this is a time and materials bid. I think that could go to 20,000. Right? I mean, at 20% more than that, it's 17. Right? So we just need to understand that there is a significant level of deferred maintenance.
And really, we're just, this would be our recommendation to them. This is what we would like to see them go forward with.
Yeah.
And they'll have to respond to that.
Exactly.
However they're going to respond.
And
there's some go forward.
Timeline and accountability, or is there anything we can do to ensure that it's getting completed?
yeah, I think they want to do this work. Like I said, we put them off. Where the discrepancy has been is with the quality of work that's being done and the way the work is being accomplished. There's some siding replacement that's resulted in straight vertical lines, and that's just like a big no-no. It's a huge water infiltration point. So that's why we're saying, hey, we need, and we, the board, need a property management company to oversee these things and make sure they're being done well, and especially with an historic building. So what do you guys think about these quotes, Jeremy?
I think we should recommend that.
Yeah, my only, it was just a question.
Yeah.
In the painting one, they talked very clearly about closing the store. They
Yes.
didn't say anything about that in the
What's-
construction, so just to be sure.
Right. So it's all lead-based paint.
Yeah.
So they have to do a lot of containment with lead-based paint. And in order to supply egress to the building, they sort of like build a tunnel to get there. And I'm imagining they want to close the building for 5 days in order to be able to paint the front without having to build this massive tunnel into the parking lot.
They said they could do it in 2 days, but it's gonna cost more money.
Yeah. They won't do it if the place can't be closed for 5 days.
Well, they'll do
for a
it
store
with
that's,
a 2-day building closure and has a
Billing.
5.
No. That's-
you know, that's 4 to 5 grand of revenue per day.
Could they do, could the entrance,
So make sure that it's coordinated with Alicia, because the timing is really important. It's very different if it's July 1st
Right.
versus
I
mud
think
season.
we did already talk with them. Did they say what the scheduling would be? I think we chatted, when we talked to Chad, didn't we say we were thinking late August, September?
yeah.
We were trying to avoid peak season for the work to be done anyway.
Okay.
So I think we said September. I think we said like September.
I mean, we would coordinate with John and with Alicia for sure.
Yeah.
You know, and bring them into this once the select board, you know, makes the approval, but yeah.
And I'm sure they will respond when we.
John and Alicia,
Closure is a big deal.
yeah, John and Alicia have seen the painting quote.
Okay.
The other quote we just got, so.
why couldn't the door to the loading dock be used as an egress while the front of the building is being painted? Why couldn't-
And maybe it could, and maybe it's really just a matter of having the conversation with these guys and coordinating with the market, like, how could we work around this? Totally.
Yeah, that would be appreciated. Let's explore that.
Yeah.
There's another entrance right there.
Right. One thing that Jeff brought up in our cemetery commission meeting, just so I'm just passing this along, is that, you know, they said they need to take down the
Part of the fence.
fencing. We would like Andrew Spencer to take it down. He's the one that put it in. We would like him to remove it and put it.
Yeah, there's just a small section that has to come out because it literally is leaning up against the building. Yep,
So,
exactly.
And then-
it's all that it's.
There's some prep work that will need to happen, and some of that will be the responsibility of Roots Work, and if there are pieces of things that are on the outside of the building or the market has installed, those things will need to come down. So there will be plenty of coordination. I think our first step is saying, hey, Roots Work, here's what we think you should do, and here's who we think you should hire, and having a conversation with them.
Excellent.
Okay.
I'm happy to pass it on. I think it's good.
Okay. And also just a note, this company is the company that did that little historic building across from Harwood last summer. You might have seen them out there working, like the little building next to the church. Remember it got rehabbed last summer? They did that work and were recommended to us through Allen Strauss.
Cool. I also just wanted to pass on that the board is fully in favor of having the lot paved.
Yay! We're all so excited about that.
We are excited about getting rid of those epic potholes.
Okay, guys, I think the only other thing that we really need to do is just give a brief update on the town garage. And, yeah, the kickoff. So we had a great meeting with Rearc and with the whole team, the construction team, including the foreman now, the site foreman. Super, yeah. They are planning to start May 18th? 18th? May 18th.
Because the Act 250 appeal period is over on the 15th, which is a Friday.
Okay.
So that's when insurance starts and all the good stuff.
And so the question that they asked us is like, we have to sort of talk about signage. What are we okay with? Do we plan signage? Are we okay with them? I didn't really understand.
Yeah, well, they want to put their big.
So they want to put, yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But then I think they were, at the same time, there was some conversation about a town of
Warren
Yeah, like
garage,
Yeah.
whatever, yeah, sign. But we have to decide.
Yeah.
I
think
think
we just need to give them permission to put their.
Where would that
I don't
fall?
know, it'd be, yeah.
Maybe there's somewhere along the road.
I was just gonna say, once you turn,
Yeah.
on the side.
But like right on the side of Route 100 feels like.
No, no. I think
Put
we
it in
can still.
front of the town on the sign so it doesn't get wrecked.
There we go. Okay, but then the other thing, which is kind of more exciting to talk about, is do we want to have a groundbreaking ceremony? And Rearc has said they've done a bunch of them, and they're happy to help facilitate.
So the only, I don't want to be Debbie Downer, but like the next day is the time capsule. Mhm. So if we did something on the
So
18th.
we should put a scoop of the dirt from the groundbreaking into the time capsules. And then we can do testing on it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's.
I don't know. Maybe, I could see maybe a small group, maybe not a big media thing. I mean,
Yeah.
I'd like to be there, you know, I think some of us would like to be there for that. Wow, you know, and we could take a few pictures, but I don't feel the need for it to be the ribbon cutting thing. I feel like
That can happen
it's a
at
little.
the end.
Yeah.
The ribbon
right,
cutting. I
Yeah.
feel like it's more exciting to have the ribbon cutting than the groundbreaking.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's, I don't think that's us so
Yeah.
much to do the.
Let's ask Bert what it would look like to just have a small,
Yeah.
you know, maybe we bring back the rest of the task force.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
right.
help, you know,
Yeah.
get this project off the ground.
And the select board and maybe Luke and Andy want to participate in a big deal part in getting here, or like a small group and take a photo.
Yeah.
What do you think, Joel? You got a gold shovel?
I can spray paint one.
Harvey, do you have thoughts?
What's that?
I said, do you have any thoughts on the groundbreaking, what we've just been discussing?
No. Yeah, I think it's a good idea, sure.
We said like just a small group and take a photo or two.
We don't need the media hoopla.
What?
I think
Lisa, was that you?
Yeah, that sounds good. I like it.
Lisa,
Take a photo.
Lisa, we'll give you a photo.
Wait, what? Sorry, you're muddled. I can't hear what you're saying to me.
Oh, I'm sorry, we thought you were making a joke. We said that we think we'll just have a small ceremony and take a couple of photos, but we won't do a big media blowout, ribbon cutting kind of thing, especially because that's being planned for the digging up of the time capsule the next day.
Oh, I see. Okay, well, if you're gonna have a photog there, send it.
Yes.
Take a picture from, I can come take a picture, just let me know when it is. It's fine. Or you take a picture, you all have phones.
Yeah, we can do that. We can do this. We can do this. Okay, what do you want to tell us about this 1,000 unit tank? What is this?
that was just my notes, you can ignore it. I actually think we just died.
Oh.
Yep.
Okay, well, we're just signing things.
Yeah, I'll keep track.
I think we're ready to sign things. Are we ready to sign things? Sugar's non-resort, proposal for temporary.
That is, that's their.
It's part of the liquor license thing. So, let's dig in. They are asking for a liquor license, Sugar Bush, for the temporary structure. And because it's technically a different structure, they're wondering if they need to like present to us, to do the whole thing, but it's the same license that they had out of Holy in order to sell beer and wine to people driving around in golf carts. My thought process was,
It's temporary or anything, right? It's not like they're having a lunch service or anything, they're just.
It's a food truck
it's a food truck.
that they'll have, you know, small munchies out of. But it's just temporary until the temporary structure is built. That's the communication from.
Temporary until the temporary structure is built. So this is for the food truck.
This is for the food truck.
Until
until the temporary structure gets built.
What's for third class again? Sorry.
Nobody knows. Third class. Establishments that intend to serve spirits must also apply for a third class.
Okay, so in July, we will submit to renew the expiring first NOCP licenses reflecting the shift in operation. Oh, I see. So this is an amendment to what's existing, but it's going to expire, and back when they had the same permanent structure, then we would, okay.
They're just amping to get geared up and they just wanted,
Unless something you're
God forbid.
Except for the third class license is the one for spirits. I'm so confused now.
You could walk through and.
The third class license is the one for spirits.
So, I know,
It's
but they're
the
saying-
opposite of what they
But
said.
this is, they're talking about the renewal. That's when the renewal happens. They want to amend the first class license to shift to one.
Okay.
When they
Okay.
renew,
Oh, okay.
then they will reflect the amended verbiage of the first and the OC.
Okay, except that this is for the third class license. That's what I'm being asked to sign.
Why don't we issue first draft of the amended? I don't know how we amend,
I don't know what they're saying to me.
I can ask Julie if there's questions.
At this time, we will amend the verbiage on the third class license to mirror the updated location.
So this is the renewal of the third class.
Yeah, but third class is spirits, so they want to sell spirits out of the food truck.
Okay, that's not what she told me on Friday.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my question would be, why do they need to renew the third class right now if they're not selling spirits? Is that?
Unless something changed between, yeah, it sounds it.
So they just don't have to, they don't have to.
Unless something changed between,
But
I guess I'm feeling a little nervous about selling spirits out of a food truck to an unbound area.
I agree. My sense is that they're saying they're not going to sell spirits. It's just that it's time for their third class to renew, so they want it renewed rather than.
I think that's what she means by that. Yeah.
But that's kind of a loose thing. I'm not really comfortable with that. Now, having said that, I am under the impression that we don't
actually do this.
Yeah. So do we have it as a?
Well, I think it's Brent's uncomfortableness approving things like this.
Yeah. Well, my feedback would be that I'm not comfortable with us selling spirits out of the food truck. I don't know why though. Well, because there's nobody.
Because there's no area. Everywhere else that we do that, there's a designated area.
They are going to have picnic tables and things, but she did say that this is, people come to the food truck and get their alcohol for their golf cart.
Right.
Okay, I think we need some clarification. Sorry.
No, it's fine.
All right, we have accounts payable and payroll.
Are you guys around to come and sign this? If she gives you an explanation that you're comfortable with?
Totally.
I mean, I don't know if all three of you need to sign it, but maybe somebody?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just put it out there, one of us.
Okay. I'll ask Julie.
Move to approve accounts payable in the amount of $1,771,612.60. Ouch. That's the school.
That's the school.
Second.
Payment.
Yeah, 1.6 of it.
Yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's gonna be 6 million in June.
Yeah. Move to approve payroll in the amount of $34,621.22.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We got another one to sign right now.
We do? Oh, yeah, we do.
Thanks for keeping me on task. We need you.
Okay, this is East Warren Community Market liquor license, second class, which is,
You're in line? You're in line. Does that need to be updated?
I don't know, I don't even see it, but I think my brain is barely functioning. You want to approve second class?
Yeah, move to approve.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
I think I got toasted in the sunshine, that's it, team.
Sunshine.
These days. Yeah. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oh, this is for the MOU.
Correct.
Thank you and good night. We are officially